Hi there, let's paint some blue monochromatic seashells. So let's start with a filbert brush. I'm going to use a size 2 filbert. So monochromatic just means that you're using the same color and then you're using darker and lighter versions of that same color. So our base color is going to be this beautiful ultramarine blue, but you can use whatever shade of blue that you have. Let's start off by putting this color along the shells. And you can just do this pretty casually. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're almost getting a watercolor-like effect. And I want to put on the paint, and then I want to blend those edges. So get some water on your brush, and then see if you can just blend the edges towards the center. And it can be a little bit challenging with acrylic because it dries so quickly. And that kind of gives us a three-dimensional base to go off of. And then let's do that with the other shells. And you can use the white of the paper to make some of the white marks that you want in your shell. If you have any designs in mind, you could do spots or stripes, but we'll get to that later. And you can think about the texture and the edges. Are they smooth? Are they jagged? And try not to lose your sketch too much. And this one is your typical clamshell. You can do whatever types of shells that you want. I like to find my reference photos on Pinterest, so you can go on there and just type in shells and get some different ideas, just so you have a variety. Okay, and we'll put the base color of the blue along the lines of our sketch and along the edges, keeping it fairly loose. You want to use a small brush when you do fine details, and then you can use a larger brush when you're doing your initial block in of your shapes and colors. Okay, so that looks good. So next we can add a darker value of our ultramarine. So to make a darker value, you can just take a little bit of Paynes Gray. And Paynes Gray kind of leans towards the blue side, so it's going to mix nicely with the ultramarine. And you might get a test swatch of paper and just kind of test it and see if it's the right intensity of color that you want. That's pretty dark. That one's a little bit better, a little more blue. So let's use that one. And then let's decide where the shadow of the objects are coming from. So we could put the shadow on this side and have the light coming from over here. So then go ahead and put that darker value that you just mixed kind of along that side where the shadow is. Just try to make things look a little more three-dimensional. Just add a little bit more form to the object. And you could add this darker color where any lines of the shell are, any ridges or lines that you want to add. And at this point, we're just building up the form. So again, think about which side is going to be your shadow side and add more of a darker color to that side. And then keep this side where the light is a little bit lighter. Okay, and just keep going with that. Okay, so now that's kind of a nice base block in. You might just kind of go over the white at this point, kind of blend into those white areas with a watery mix just to have a nice underpainting and to try to bring all of your painting strokes together. Okay, so I use quite a bit of water, so you might want to let that dry a little bit. But let's switch brushes. Actually, let's stay with this brush and let's add an even darker color. So see if you can get a little more Paynes Gray and see if you can go darker where the shadows are of the shell. So some of those really dark values and dark shadows, look at your reference photo, notice where those are, and then try to put those in. This shell on the inside, it has kind of a shadow here. And the kind of the snail type of shell. And the very inside is where it has most of its shadow. And then right here at the end, it has quite a bit of shadow. So you can just get some very beautiful effects using just one color and then creating the lighter and darker values. And a lot of beginning artists use this as an exercise to work on your values, because that's what gives form to the object. It makes things look more realistic. So this is a really, not only does it look beautiful when it's finished, but it also is a great way for you to practice with your different values. Just remember where that darker side is and add a little bit more pigment. Okay. So we have a lot of water going on here, so it is a little bit almost like a watercolor effect that we have going on. So at this point, why don't we bring in a lighter value of blue? So to do that, we're gonna make a tint, a light blue tint. So take your titanium white and add a tiny bit of ultramarine in there. And it's a very strong color, so you don't need much, just a little bit, and it's gonna turn that white fairly quickly. And then that gives you a nice, beautiful light blue color. And then see how that looks if you add it onto your shells. It almost looks kind of purpley. So you can add that in where you might see it in a painting, where the highlights are, or you might see it on the object, the reference photo. And that's just giving us more of an opaque look rather than a watercolor effect. Okay, so next you can take just a straight white shade and then add some highlight. Might put a highlight here, maybe over here. Just put it in where you feel like the highlight needs to be in the object. Okay, and then what you could do, if you need to blend, if some of it came out a little bit too bright, you can just blend that in. If you notice anything is just popping out a little bit too much, let's go ahead and add some blending with your brush. And then you could go back and put in, if you wanted to make any kind of designs, you could do that. Maybe go back with your base color of ultramarine, and you could go in with that fine detail and just maybe add some different shapes. With this shell, I'm just putting these lines here. Maybe this one has some more stripes along the top, just to give it a little more texture. And this one, we might do maybe some spots on there or some dots to give it kind of a cool look. Okay, so at this point, let's just call that done. If you want to go back and add a little more detail to yours, you can definitely go ahead and do that. But let's call this piece finished. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.